Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Black Tower Podcast. Yes, it's a Wheel of Time podcast, but you already knew that because you're listening now, and you found us somehow, be it Google or Twitter or just a sense in the disturbance of the Force, its own unique bubble
Or
of
maybe
evil.
maybe you're Taviran and you
Maybe.
were drawn here by the other Taviran who joined us.
Yes, perhaps.
Hmm.
But that's who we are. The Black Tower Podcast. Talking about any and everything dealing with the Wheel of Time. Everything down to the little tiny microscopic wood splinters that make up the Wheel of Time. All the way to the TV show. We'll go with that. I was trying to think of something like hilariously outlandish to link to the Wheel of Time, and it just my mind just was like, nope, you got nothing right now.
You got nothing. Screw you, Andrew's mouth. Well, wait a minute.
At the time of this recording, our homeboy Daniel is working on things on the job front. I believe he's doing an interview of sorts. But if you can remember many episodes ago, perhaps even before Josh and Daniel were consistent co-hosts on the podcast, we decided on doing 3 hosts for a reason such as that, to where if one of us can't make it, there's still 2 people and it's not just one person raving into a microphone, though that wouldn't necessarily be unexpected of the Black Tower. So he cannot be with us for this. However, you do have myself, and I am Andrew.
And you've got me, Josh, your dispenser of taint and all tainty knowledge things.
I've got you, babe. Never too early nor too late for a little bit of share.
Okay.
Sure. I mean, just accept it. Just
go
with it.
Just going with it. You can have that one. So
I don't want share.
No
disrespect to her, like achievements and everything. Like,
yeah, she's definitely a very successful.
There is a list somewhere,
performer.
And statistically, she's on it somewhere, but it's not going to be top 5. No offense, Cher. And I also believe
she
girl. Married.
You do.
Or wasn't she?
She was.
She was.
So, anyway, just so you guys know, today's episode is one of our critically acclaimed, one-of-a-kind, absolutely breathtaking book reviews. Now, if you've been listening, you've been paying attention, you know that we've done book reviews for The Eye of the World, The Great Hunt, The Dragon Reborn, The Shadow Rising, Fires of Heaven, Chaos, Crown of Swords, Path, Winter's Heart, and Crossroads of Twilight. But don't forget, we've also done Knife of Dreams and The Gathering Storm. You know what that means. We're going to do The Towers of Midnight. So if you've not read...
I thought it was going to be The Sorcerer's Stone.
No.
Shit. Let me change my notes around real quick.
Rand Thor and the Sorcerer's Stone is next. That's the one Brandon Sanderson's working on right now.
Oh, okay. I got you.
But if you have not read through the series up to and through Towers of Midnight, and you do not wish to assault your ears with spoilers of the story, if you decide you want to hold on to your raffles and not lose them, then I highly suggest that you push pause. Not stop, pause. And then go read all the way up through Towers of Midnight, and then come back and push play. So that you can
have 3 hours.
Tune in right here at this moment. So right now, pause.
And we'll see you in 3 hours when you finish every book up through Towers of Midnight.
And welcome back to the Towers of Midnight book review. Andrew.
Make sure you protect your towers. Be they of midnight or not right. Of midnight.
Always practice safe towering.
Works for me. I feel like there's a position to be created there. And I don't mean the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think
that's already one. This is a
Tower Master.
Actually, if you want to take it on reference of the phrase Towers of Midnight, at a minimum it's 6 towers, at a maximum it's 13, just enough to turn you to the dark side. So
Ooh.
the wind is really blowing outside. Jeez. I have one window in my room cracked open.
Yeah.
And so this really comes to bite me in the ass when late at night I can't sleep and I'm watching like ghost hunting videos and urban explorations and stuff, and then the wind blows, but I don't really like, hear the wind, but it moves the drawstring or whatever for the blinds, and because it still has the paper warning tag, don't remove this tag.
Do not
Children
remove.
under the age of 15 may choke themselves to death with it, and small animals.
Right.
Not to make light of warnings, but some of them are stupid. This one actually isn't, but that flaps around and I, of course, can't see it. And I only have a very narrow little triangle where I can actually look out that window. And because I always have the light on in the bedroom or the room I'm in, I can't actually see out. And I'm just waiting one day to be in the middle of recording, look down, and there's just a face just staring at me like, hello there. Hopefully it's Obi-Wan and I'm needed.
It could be the madness.
Could be. What's the actor's actual name? Like, I can see it in my head.
Wait, are you talking about old Obi-Wan or young Obi-Wan?
Young Obi-Wan.
That is Ewan McGregor.
Yeah, that's it.
And for any of you who might be motorcycle enthusiasts, Ewan McGregor has a documentary. Well, he's got several documentaries, but my favorite one it's called Long Way Round. And he and Charlie Boorman jump on motorcycles and ride from the very northern tip of the UK, and they go across Europe and through Asia up into Alaska, and then across the United States to New York. And they drive on these motorcycles around the world.
Is it sponsored by Harley?
It was actually sponsored by BMW.
Oh, one of the BMW motorcycles that aren't real motorcycles because they're not a Harley.
They had originally they had worked a sponsorship through KTM, and then KTM backed out on them at the last moment, and they were like, "Yeah, we don't think you're going to do it." So
much respect to that, but not as much respect as I have for McGregor's performance in The Men Who Stare at Goats.
Dude, McGregor, he's just an amazing actor and longtime fan of the Black Tower podcast. So, Mr. McGregor, thank you so much.
Shout out to you, Mr. McGregor.
For your patronage.
Didn't he get knighted?
Love.
Isn't it like Sir Ian McGregor?
I
can't remember. So. If he hasn't been knighted, he needs to. As we both furiously... What is... I don't know what link I clicked on, but it was not the one I thought I was clicking on. I am looking at the wrong person. I am looking at Aaron McGregor.
Oh, apparently they were knighted in France, not the UK.
Oh, really?
So...
Well, a knight is a knight, even if it's for the historical long-standing opponent of your
knight
own
of the
nation.
realm. Yeah, so it says that he and Jim Carrey were knighted in France at the same time.
Oh, well, that... Don't be wrong. I love Jim Carrey.
In 2010.
I do love Jim Carrey, but I don't know if I was Ewan McGregor, if I would feel like the knighting... Like, you do all these performances as Obi-Wan.
Right.
Go in like The Men Who Stare Goes, and you do all these fantastic movies, and then they pull the guy from Bruce Almighty. The guy.
Well, Jim Carrey does a lot of work outside of Hollywood.
Oh yeah, he does. No, don't get me wrong. There's nothing against Jim Carrey. He's a fantastic guy. I love Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
The only thing I didn't love was his like love confession on YouTube for Emma Stone. That's like a one drink too many video that somebody makes. That's like David Hasselhoff on the floor cussing out his daughter kind of level like video. Like, still love Jim Carrey to death. He's a fantastic actor, amazing philanthropist, amazing activist as well.
Yeah,
which is half of philanthropy anyway.
Right.
But that has nothing to do with Towers of Midnight.
That does not. Jim Carrey does not make a cameo in Towers of Midnight. He doesn't. I'm sorry. I know that is a big rumor
What if like
Looney
2.5,
Theory Thursday.
3 years from now, whenever we get to the portion of Towers of Midnight in the TV series and Jim Carrey is there?
Okay, on all of our listeners right now, if I give you full permission, if Jim Carrey makes any type of appearance in the Wheel of Time TV show during the plot of the Towers of Midnight,
you will eat your
please point that shit out. I'll be all over
it. He's just a side off, like Jim Carrey. This A-list actor winds up being an extra in the Wheel of Time TV series. He's just like some dude. He's like you watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, right?
Oh yeah.
Remember the cabbage guy? He just winds up being the cabbage guy in the Wheel of Time. He's just like that one peddler that's always in the background of like half the scenes.
I got one even better. He's an Ashaman.
Oh snap!
Dude,
that would work.
It would. You could totally do an Ace Ventura Pet Detective, and you know he's got range to like play it dark as well. But he could be like a Dashiva. Only
that's what I thought about when you said it. Like not the Shiva, but like one of the Shiva's like homies.
Yeah.
This is just as seemingly aloof as the Shiva
type is. That type of insanity.
Which isn't a spoiler because at this point you know the Shiva is not actually some random Ashaman.
Ooh,
in fact, he's a Mick asshole.
Yeah, he's first introduced in book 6 in Lord of Chaos. Yeah, he's first introduced in Lord of Chaos, and in Rand, he's brought as a full secondary character when Rand selects at random several Ashaman that come with Taim to Demise Wells, and Shiva is one of the ones that Rand selects to be his personal sort of honor guard. Because Taim says, really? "Oh, who is he really?" Well, he
Osangar.
is Osangar, who was Belthamel? Was it Belthamel? Osangar? I know Arengar was Agenor. Osangar is, I think he's Belthamel. I'm looking.
No, Osangar is Agenor reincarnated.
Arengar. Sorry.
No, Agenor. From book 1.
No. Agenor is Osangar. Who then becomes
the Shiva.
Halima. No, you're right. You're right.
Osangar is masquerading as the Shiva, as Corlan the Shiva.
Yes, you were absolutely. I've got those backwards. I'm sorry. Osangar.
That's right. I'm really good with Google.
Agenor, who is posing as the Shiva. And it was...
But you are right with Arengar being Balthamel.
Yes. Okay. So I just got Osan and Aaron mixed up. And there was the fun part of... which I know we're doing Towers of Midnight, so I don't want to get too deep into it. But, there's been a lot of talk about like gender and gender identity with respect to the Wheel of Time. And I think... Arengar is going to be a really fun addition to that because that's sort of I have to believe, and I do believe that Robert Jordan wrote Arengar as sort of the sort of a trans person representation because you've got a male soul in a female body. And Shaidar Haran even says specifically that the soul has, dominion over the body. And so therefore this person is able to channel Saidin. However, eventually, if they want to, they can give in to the female body, at which point they will, it's suggested or hinted that this person will begin to start channeling Saidin. I don't know.
Which is this whole other topic, which
it's a whole other
with
thing.
The topic is, can we as a fandom get together and stop using the phrase one power and true source interchangeably, please?
Oh, okay. You know what? That is a
because
hill I will die
I'm
on.
looking at the wiki right now for Arangar. And it says, which seems to show that it is the soul that determines which part of the true source that is channeled.
Yes.
Can we not? Like, the true source isn't divided into halves. And we've talked earlier, in other episodes about kind of where I'm starting to get the feeling that even the one power isn't truly divided into two halves. But they're not the same thing. The one power, or the one power is a proxy power that derives itself from the true source. Right. Separate entities.
Right.
Not the same thing. Not interchangeable. Fucking can you not, bruh?
Well, and that they even go.
There's even YouTubers that are still doing it.
They even go very,
not to call out
like this.
Yeah, not to call out YouTubers or anything like that. There's people in the fandom that do it. There's people all over the place that are still doing it.
Yeah,
and
they actually,
if we're gonna argue over things of being mad that Bella is being played by a male horse, then you should at least be able to get the difference between the true source and the one power right first.
Well,
get the source material right first.
Yeah, there's even times, there's moments where, okay, first off, Ishamael uses he draws from the true source. Okay,
yeah,
directly. Which, means he gets the black dot in his eye, a Saa, S-A-A. And there's times when Rand draws from the true source. And they talk about the true source being, first off, being no different for men or women. Like, if you are able to channel the true source, it's just the true source. So you're going to the river and you drink it straight from the river, baby. That's how this is. And it is said to be way more addictive, way more powerful, and way more difficult to control. You must have a much stronger sense of will. What's that?
Let's just ask Nate Bliss how it feels. He has access.
Yeah, we definitely should. Hey, Nate Bliss, I know you're listening. If you want to just comment on Twitter, just give us 140 characters. Give us a tweet.
How does it feel to channel the Wheel of Time's version of God Key or Chi?
That's right.
How does it feel to channel the same power that the Creator and the Dark One use?
Yeah.
But anyway,
so one
Towers
power
of Midnight.
Dropping some knowledge bombs on y'all. One power, true source. They are separate. They are not interchangeable.
They are connected, but they are not interchangeable. Phrases, words, nouns, whatever you want to call it. You want to call things by their proper nouns or pronouns or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. All right. Stop calling the true source the one power and the one power the true source. They're different.
Boom. Hashtag my hill to die on. Andrew, I'm going to need you to do something for me. I'm going to need you to break this book down.
Oh, we're going to break down every tower in the Midnight. I can't do it to a beat because I can't rap. I'll leave that to Eminem and Mises and all those guys. Not Nick Cannon because he can't rap. But
you know what? I respect you for knowing your limits. I do. But go ahead, break this down for us. Tell us all about the Towers of Midnight.
So, Towers of Midnight. This is the 13th book in the core 14-book series of Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time. This is, of course, the second book that was written and finished by Brandon Sanderson using Robert Jordan's notes, along with the help of Harriet McDougall as an editor. And making sure that he kept things straight. And as we see during the course of all the interviews, quickly learned the phrase RAFO or RAFO, read and find out. And there was another one. It was like MAFO, like, who was there was a female expert on the series. She was one of the editors that basically like asked Marie I feel so bad for not remembering her name.
No, you know what?
But it was basically like they coined the phrase "MAFO" for saying like "ask her," And if she'll give you the answer, then you're good. But if she won't give you the answer, then you're fucked.
Yeah. There's a lot of information, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to get in the middle of your breakdown, but there's a lot of information about the series that to this day remains unconfirmed. Brandon Sanderson has told us that he knows.
There's even points. I think there's even points that like Robert Jordan said you can't reveal this until the 10-year anniversary of the release of the first book, or the last book rather.
And there was one, the most recent one that I can think of was, the whole balefire crossing streams conversation that Brandon Sanderson released a few months back. And the big thing there was, I guess the stipulation on that was that someone had to guess it.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of this stuff.
But there's a lot. Yeah. Robert Jordan,
there's also an equal amount of stuff that through Harriet McDougal and Brandon Sanderson, and I really want to stick with the name Marie, but I feel like I'm wrong. But through Maffo, we don't even know. Like Robert Jordan, according to them, did not leave notes about a certain prolific event that happens at the end of the next book.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of that stuff,
and there's a lot of. I'm hoping we see some of those confirmations in TV series.
Indeed. But
it is Maria, by the way.
It is Maria. I think I was saying Marie, but
one of her title is a fact handler.
Yes. Oh yeah.
So, but she's one of the ones who knows the secrets.
Someone just cackled madly in the background of your house.
Yes, it's the madness.
I mean, that's perfectly fine. The madness doesn't have to be constrained to just us dudes. I'm perfectly fine with sharing that with everybody. So Towers of Midnight was initially actually not called Towers of Midnight. It was called Shifting Winds. And for a while, this was the working and scheduled release title of the book. But Brandon Sanderson urged in September 2009 that the name be changed. And of course, it was then changed to Towers of... excuse me, I keep burping. Madness, it bubbles up like evil.
Bubbles of evil? What?
Yeah. I'm releasing bubbles of evil. Be prepared. That sounds so like...
This might be the first time
busting ass over here.
I was about to say, this might be the first time I'm glad we're not in the same room when we record.
Hey. Give it time.
I'll
just
give it
like
time.
Every faithful partner that everybody ever has, at some point you got to learn to love the gas.
It's why we're here, Meg.
That's why we're here. Love it.
Love it.
So initially it was scheduled for release on October 26th of 2010. And then the rumor was that it'd be released about 2.5 weeks later in the UK on November 5th, 2010. The US release date was pushed back to November 2nd. Chapter 8, entitled The Seven Striped Lass, was made available on Brandon Sanderson's blog following the Great Hunt puzzle event. The prologue Distinctions was sold on September 21st, 2010 as an ebook for $2.99 on Amazon to US and Canadian residents. Chapter 1 was made called Apples First, was made available to read on the Tor website, while Chapter 2 was made available, of course, entitled Questions of Leadership on the Tor website. The book itself is 1,264 pages long, and it's like mainstream release format. Obviously, page numbers and page links change when you switch from paperback to hardback. And of course, there are no page links in audiobooks because that would just be freaking weird. But it's a very interesting POV style book that we get to, because we're so used to having Rand be a significant portion of the POV.
Yeah.
And Towers of Midnight, Rand is all but absent until you get to the epilogue.
He's
Um,
he's
so Towers of
in hardly any of the book.
Exactly. Towers of Midnight, like every other book, it has a prologue, it has an epilogue, and 57 independent chapters with 29 different point of views listed in the book. And in this book, Perrin takes the majority of the POVs with 20.6% of the point of view of the entire book, followed by Matt, who gets 14.8, Elaine, who gets 8.3, Egwene, who gets 8, and Galad actually gets 5.7. Unfortunately, his younger, more annoying, we wish you would all disappear, brother, gets about 5.4. We get some POV chapter. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've been a defender of Gowan, but oh my God. In my reread, I'm in book 7 right now.
If Gowan was to ever become tolerable, he does start getting tolerable in Towers of Midnight. I'll give him that.
A ponce.
But other notable characters to get POVs. Fael gets a POV here. Rodel Iterade. Avienda. Bay gets almost 4% POV.
What's up, girl?
Looking at you. Look at you,
hey,
girl.
Hey.
Min comes in slightly behind that. She comes a little bit later. Opposite of the way things have happened in the book, where she comes first. Giggity. Nynaeve gets some POV. Morghese gets it. The Bard to the Twitter of Time, Andral Ginhold, gets some POV here. Shout out to you, Andral. Thank you for letting us use your Black Tower song.
For real. Hold on. If you guys are not following Andral on Twitter, you should be. He is straight up at Andral Genhold, and he's one of the coolest dudes like in the world. And mad props and mad shout out to you,
dude's got mad
my
skills.
good sir. And he's a damn talented musician. His band is awesome. He just released a playlist, and it's just great.
Man, it shows you what you can do. You don't have to have a fancy professional recording studio.
Recruiting.
You don't need a fancy recruiting studio to make yourself some good music now, all right? You go right over there on Twitter. You're going to look up that there Andral Ginhold, and you're going to see what he does.
You get all up in. And
he just took, and this was like, what, maybe not even a full month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, he turned a couch up on its end, put a sheet over it, and started using that as some kind of, as like some soundproofing. And the difference in the music there that you could tell, like the lack of ambient atmosphere reverb. The music was amazing beforehand anyway, and he's only going to make it even better. And rumor has it, there are whispers on the winds of time that he may be re-recording the Black Tower song. So super stoked about that, if it is, of course, in fact, true. But other characters. Grendel gets some POV. Lan, Brigitte, Suan. Tuon gets some. Catswain. Padden Fane. He's back in here. He gets about 6% of the prologue, coming in at 0.3% of the entire book. But the interesting fact, Padden Fane gets gets a higher percentage POV of the book than Rand himself does. Rand only gets 0.28% of the book, and that is in the only place he shows up is in about 16% of the epilogue, where he delivers what she believes at the time devastating aspects of his plans to his childhood sweetheart that he don't want nothing to do with really no more.
That's right.
And only one person gets less representation as far as POV than the quote, and that is Masana, get fucked. That's all I can say about that one. Masana comes in at 0.11% of the entire book POV, 5% of chapter 37.
I was about to say, does that just mean Masana got a cameo, really?
Yeah, basically. I mean, Masana's life is a cameo. So,
well, yeah. Of the Forsaken, Masana is not one of the more up and coming. I mean, what do they say? There are grinders and there are rainmakers, right? Masana's a grinder. Lanfear's a rainmaker. It's just how it is.
Yeah, it's kind of how it works. But this is very much a Perrin intensive book, not to be confused with the less savory, less favorable Perrin arc storylines from
Winter's Heart.
Yeah, I'm glad you chimed in there because I'm sitting there like trying not to burp and I keep burping. I'm like, why?
This is Perrin's book, man. This is Perrin's book. This contains Perrin at his most badass.
I mean, he becomes the God of Thunder, so
thus far. Yeah, he does. I mean, so first off, he's been learning the wolf dream with Hopper, and he's finally accepted his superpower or his gift of being a wolf brother. And so we get to see him do things in the wolf dream that are absolutely amazing. As a matter of fact, there's a meeting where he's in the wolf dream and Egwene goes into the wolf dream or into Teleron Rayad, which we know are the same things. And I think it's in this book. I can't find it, but I think it's in this book where there's a battle. There's a whole battle fought in Teleron Rayad. And no, you know what? It was prior to this book. It's not this book. It's prior to this book. But Egwene finds Perrin in the dream, and she's like, I don't know how you got here, but you need to get out. And she like chains him up with her mind in Teleron Rayad. And he's just like, yeah, that's cute. You can't do that. I'm a wolf brother. Screw you. And they just melt off of him. He disappears. And she's like, whoa, wait, what? And it was great. And even how badass he was earlier in the series, like we get to start seeing Perrin stepping into the wolf dream and being just a badass. But there's still a lot of conflict in his mind up until the end of the story. And I won't get there yet because I don't want to jump around too much. But yeah, this is Perrin's book. This is Perrin's book. He does. I get that
as like a notification tone on the phone now. Just too much.
There you go. Anybody who wants to take a sound bite of this, just take a sound bite, put it on there, and make it your ringtone. If you do that, I will personally purchase some Black Tower swag for you and have it shipped to your home. So just
that's
post a video
big
somewhere.
Commitment there.
I will, dude. If someone wants to get and put my voice on their ringtone, I will send them a free gift emblazoned with the Black Tower Podcast logo. And you guys should know that we do have merch. That is a thing that's happening. Now, we've just dabbled our toes in it. But Andrew, if they want to buy merch, where do they go?
So you are going to want to go. You ever heard of an old place called Spreadshirt?
Spreadshirt? That sounds like an amazing website.
So it is hosted and done by Spreadshirt. You're going to want to go to shop.spreadshirt.com/black-tower-podcast. Or make things far easier for you. Just look in the description of this episode. You'll see a thing that says merch with a link. Click on that. Takes you right to the shop. Since we're talking about this randomly in the middle of the episode or so, not necessarily random, I guess, considering the conversation, but huge shout out to whoever that is in Australia. They got those dope tie-dye shirts. Dude.
Bro. For real. Or wait, I guess I should say
dudette. Whoever you may be.
Thanks for listening in. We love you
so much.
We love your patronage. We love that you're here. So what I like to say to you is grab yourself a nice tall cold one, crack it open, and drink one for the Black Tower, because this one is for you. And if you
ever make it over,
because I know Hugh,
ever make it over to the States and we get to hang out,
mate,
I will buy you free drinks. If you ever get over to the States and we get to meet up with you, I will buy you free drinks if you bring us some dark chocolate Tim Tams. So that's a thing.
So Okay, and
I will buy
I'm
you
just
free drinks. That makes it sound like I'm not going to buy them. I will buy your drinks.
I want to
cost.
throw it out. I want to throw it out there that any of our Aussies, you visit and provide us with dark chocolate Tim Tams, drinks are on us.
There you go. That works.
So now that we've shamelessly plugged ourselves,
appeal to all of Australia, which we are still hoping for the best with your entire country literally being on fire.
Yeah, I think they're good. Actually, I think they're.
Is it actually calming down now?
I think they've got most of it under control. I actually do have family in Australia. My brother-in-law and his wife and her family all live in Australia, and they said that a lot of the fire that is uncontrolled or uncontained is in a region that is virtually uninhabited, which is why it's uncontained. Because
I know a couple weeks ago we, and by we I mean the States, we lost some firefighters in a in an aerial accident.
Right.
So
yeah. But anyway, this is Perrin's book. I say this is Perrin's book, even though Matt does some pretty amazing things as well.
I mean, it's still everybody's book, but Perrin gets the limelight in this one.
And I will say this as a sort of a note on, Rand doesn't get a lot of book time. I mean, he's barely mentioned. You could almost say that he has a cameo, and some people would say it's a little weird that the Dragon Reborn has a cameo in his own series.
He makes good fucking use of it,
right? Though, but I will say this: I feel like it's a really great illustration, because what do we get from the entire story? The whole time, Rand is running around doing this, doing that, sending Perrin here, sending Matt there, sending, his Ashaman here, sending those guys there. The whole time, yes, Rand is the Dragon Reborn. He is the, prophesied to herald the last battle. But this book right here is a beautiful example of how Rand can't do it by himself.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a really good, everybody has to be there.
Yeah.
It's a very good explanation of how
together.
Yeah. All these people get together. All these people take all these steps. And it sets the stage for, if you want to say we have a main protagonist, being the main figure from the prophecies of the dragon. That this book sets the stage for Rand to come out, glitter pants and glitter shirt, and just shine like the disco ball he is.
I love that.
I mean, it has to happen that way. Because we'll go ahead. Let's go ahead and knock Rand out, because we don't have to talk about the book in order, because the people listening have already read the book.
Yeah.
Or they're at a point in the book where they're ready to listen to it. Yeah, and he does have
such a small but potent.
It's small in terms of word count and percentage of POV of the book, but it's enormous, because for the last 12 books, it's been, anytime we find this Quendiar disc with this sinuous line down the middle dividing white and black into a yin and yang symbol without the dots in the fattest part of the symbol, we got to protect it, because the sacred text, the sacred seals, because they're supposed to be made of something, that the more power you put into breaking it, the stronger it becomes itself.
Right.
And we've seen, even in book 1, where Moraine picks up the seal that was in the Eye of the World, and it's broken into pieces. And you're like, she either stabs it with a dagger, or Lan does. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, Lan does.
And it like breaks apart and pieces flake off everywhere. And they're like, the fuck? This is Quendiar. What the shit? You're not supposed to do this.
I love how everybody kind of shits themselves. And as the reader, you're like, oh.
It's a big deal.
I mean,
like, that's nifty.
That's kind of cool, I guess.
And then you read the rest of this. You start reading through the rest of the series, and you're like, oh no, that's really bad.
Oh no.
So you have 12 books of literally everybody that knows what these seals are, saying we have to protect them to keep the Dark One sealed away. And so Rand gets his 28.38. What did I say it was? What does this say it is? He gets his 0.28% of the book. Goes to the White Tower to visit his old flame, his old love Egwene. Looks the Amerlin seat in the face and says, "Yeah, you know all those seals? I want to break them.
I'm gonna break them." Now, this is, keep in mind now.
That's a good meme, though. Like Rand breaking one seal, and they're like, "You better stop!" And it's just Goofy. I'm gonna fucking do it again.
Or those are some nice seals you got there. Be a shame if something were to happen to them. That could be the dark one.
But you got to keep in mind, this is Zen Rand that we're
talking about. And that's where I was just getting ready to go with.
This is Force Ghost, but not Rand. A ghost yet Rand.
This is Rand who he's gone through the deepest, darkest, and we've talked about, sort of the mental side of this and the PTSD side of this. And this is Rand after he's had his moment of Satori. And
he's got his prescription meds. He's all back. He's got it together.
He has whatever it was he needed. He's got the focus, the confidence, and the faith, I'll say, that he knows.
He's got 10% luck, 20%
skill, 15% concentrated power of will. Yeah, he's got it. Okay. So, which to me, I think makes him even more terrifying because now
Zen Rand is fucking horrifying.
Dude, he's just amazing. And he comes, he just pops in.
At this point, we've already popped the cherry on the fact that the voice of Lews Therin isn't actually the voice of Lews Therin.
No. It is the madness that is.
It's essentially like a form of schizophrenia.
Yes.
Where Rand says, I refuse, outward he's saying, I am the Dragon Reborn, but mentally he's like, fuck it. I want to be anything but the Dragon Reborn. So he takes the knowledge he would have from a past life that he's being exposed to through a combination of it being a reborn soul and a combination of his severe nature and sectioning it off as something he doesn't know. Something like Matt, it's like the opposite of, not exactly the opposite of Matt, because Matt, for him, it's just memories. It's just stuff that's in his mind.
Well, and
it fills in gaps that he didn't have that were eroded away because of the dagger from Shadar Logoth. Well, and for Rand, it's a complete 180. He goes, and I know you're trying to say something right now. I don't mean to
no, go for it.
Sound like I'm talking over you, but Rand literally, in the span of a single chapter, I believe in book 12, goes. Wasn't it the last book that he becomes Zen Rand?
I think so.
Fuck it, I can destroy the fabric of the pattern, but I'm not.
Exactly. But
it's just like,
but I'm not gonna.
It's like the worst April Fool's joke. I'm going to destroy the fabric of time. Just kidding. I'm going to finally get in touch with the inner me. He pulls a Robin Williams from Bicentennial Man. I saw the inner me.
Yeah.
And accepts those memories. And whenever Rand does that, when he can accept the soul that is reborn, that he really is this person reincarnated, that he really is this soul that is meant to do these things. He's still fully, just like he was whenever he was still Darth Rand, he's still very resolved to death, but it's not I want to fucking die. It's I'm going to have to die for this, and I'm okay with that.
Well, he's also, again, he's cordoning off, just like you're saying. So two thoughts with this. So first off, from book 1, because a lot of people say, well, if it's not Lews Therin, how did he know the weaves? How did he know how to do this? How did he know how to do that? Blah, blah, blah. Well, again, Moraine says from book 1, the old blood sings. And it affects the 3 ta'veren in different ways. Matt, obviously, he gets luck. And not only that, but he can speak fluently in the old tongue. And he does that before his visit
old
to
blood,
the tower.
The old blood sings. And it's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah.
Exactly. So I would say, because Rand is in denial for the first 12 books, saying, you are Luz Theron, you are insane, you are the kinslayer, and I want nothing to do with you. I will do what I must.
Which, to put it in perspective, to say 12 books sounds like a very long time, but in reality, it's like maybe a year and a half-ish.
Yeah, it's not a long time.
Look, all right, I'm 26 years old. I've been in denial for like at least 25, all right? It's not a long time at all.
So Rand is when he has his moment of revelation, they refer to it as the big revelation, he understands, this is me. Everything in my mind is me. That's it. And I'm going to work my ass off to make sure that Ileana gets another chance to live a full life. Because even if she can't be with me, at least she can live a full and happy life with someone else. He kind of forgives himself, and he accepts that, hey, these are the actions of someone else. I am Randall Thor, but I understand that I am this person who's been reborn, and now is my chance at redemption.
When he kind of gets that, like,
it's such a
Luz Theron is going to blame himself for what happens to himself and the 100 Companions when they use purely male channelers to seal the Dark One away.
Right.
Thus, why Sidene was tainted like it was.
Right.
And he's remedied that taint. So at that point, for the most part, Luz Theron has atoned for his, quote unquote, chief sin.
His sin, yeah.
His attempt, and it furthers the narrative of the fact that we've talked about this in our episodes when we talk about sexism in the Wheel of Time. We reviewed articles many times over that whenever all the men do something by themselves, or all the women do something by themselves, that it's a half measure. It doesn't actually take care of it.
Yeah.
And which is just incarnate from that scene in Winter's Heart, where it takes a female channeler, and not just a female channeler, almost inarguably the strongest female channeler currently alive of this age, the third age.
Yeah. Yep.
To take and cleanse the taint. So that's a moment for Luz Theron where it's like, I fucked up, and I fucked up bad. Like, really bad. Like you can't fuck up worse.
Yeah.
Than the way Luz Theron fucked up. I mean, you could have failed to seal the Dark One, and all of time and hope could have been lost.
Yeah, but I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really great, and I know we've talked gender and gender roles and sexism in the Wheel of Time to death, and it's one of the things I love about it, because we could continue talking to death. But one of the things I love most about it is undeniable, and anybody who's read the series has to be able to acknowledge the fact, because he says it over and over again, that the greatest feats ever accomplished with the One Power were always accomplished with Sidene and Saidar both. When they were working together, they were able to accomplish way more than when they did it alone. And it seems, just as you were saying, when they went off on their own and did their own thing, when Luz Theron took the 100 Companions and attacked the Dark One, they fucked themselves. And then the women spent the next 3,000 years, basically culling the ability to channel out of the human race by gentling every single man they could find that could channel. It's
with good reason.
With good reason. Absolutely. I'm not absolutely with good reason. You can't risk another breaking. That's like saying, I've got nuclear warheads that I'm just going to spin out every month and just pass one out. I get it. Totally understandable. But the point is, when you've got people acting in their own sides and not working together, things aren't as good as if people are together.
Agreed.
And I think that's a really great message.
Is really good illustrated, really well illustrated in Rand's POV, which it's hilarious that we're talking this much about literally one of the smallest POVs of the book. Because Rand just doesn't sit, wherever he wants to sit. He doesn't just sit in Bandar Eban or anywhere and say, this is what I'm going to do. He goes back to his childhood, back to someone that, regardless of what she's done, what happens, how long they've been apart, that he does trust. Is he apprehensive of Egwene as the Amyrlin? Of course he is. He couldn't not be.
There's still prejudice against... And it
does... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's still prejudice against men who can channel. A lot of people don't believe.
And Rand still has prejudice against the Aes Sedai.
And there's still...
Not as individual people. And that's one thing that we see him having graduated from. He no longer hates Aes Sedai as individual people. Not to say that he really ever truly did beforehand, but he had individual people to use as examples. Alana was a huge example.
Right.
The things where he felt Moraine was just trying to manipulate him, whether it was with the best or worst of intentions, we know that it was with the best of intentions to try to guide him.
Right.
And we see Moraine do her best she can to remedy that, but also give him the caution: trust no woman that calls herself Aes Sedai. But we see in here that whenever it comes to this world-shattering revelation that these seals have to be destroyed, which is a bit of, you got to get rid of the old to put in the new. Whenever the original baseboard for the floor is soggy and sagging and you got to get rid of it, you got to get rid of all of it to put in a new baseboard to have a stable foundation.
Right.
He goes to the Amyrlin seat. So you have the leader of the Black Tower, at least in title, going to the leader of the White Tower, who is leader of the White Tower by far more than just title, and saying, this is what I plan to do. This is what I believe has to happen. This has to happen for this to go right.
Yeah, exactly.
And looks at her and says, the next time we speak, we'll be on the field of Marilor, in the Borderlands, and we'll discuss the situation then. And just leaves. And Egwene's like, oh, fuck no. And starts sending out letters through the eyes and the ears and through all of her diplomatic connections that she can now as the Amyrlin seat. Say, look, as many rulers as we can possibly get, as many people with an army as we can get here, we need you here to say this is a bad idea. And that winds up being such a crucial thing. Because it doesn't just bring people together to look at Rand and say, you're wrong. It brings armies to fight Tarmangadan. Whether you realize it at this point or not, she is sending letters to rulers asking them to unite under a single cause. And we know,
would you say
by the way Taviran worked.
Taviran-esque?
Exactly. That's what I was about to say. We know by Taviran nature that these things happen for a reason. And it does come down to a point where it seems like it's going to be a meeting between Rand and Egwene to decide literally the fate of the world.
Right. Well, not only that, but Rand doesn't ask. See, this is another big moment, because Rand just pops into the Amyrlin study, which is like, well, excuse me, the Amyrlin who makes kings and queens bow and curtsy. And then he's just like, oh, hey, Egwene, you know what? I'm just going to tell you this. I'm going to break the seals on the Dark One's prison. So come to the fields of Marilor in the Borderlands, and we'll go ahead.
We'll continue the conversation there.
We'll continue the conversation. But this is my plan. This is what's happening. So I'll see you there. Bye. And pops out. And it's like, you're right. She shits herself a little bit. She's like, okay. But take into account what we just talked about, Zen Rand. He came in. It wasn't madness. It wasn't, erratic. He wasn't, staring through her and seeming to be listening to something else or somebody else. He was focused. He made eye contact. He was calm. And he said, this is the plan. This is what I'm going to do. I'll talk to you in the fields of Seal.
Look, guys, the Rand you're seeing now is the Dragon Reborn that the world has needed since Moraine has been looking for the Dragon Reborn. This isn't Rand from the Two Rivers. This isn't Rand who ordered the Ashaman to make an example to the world of the Shido at Demise Wells. This isn't the Rand that fought his own reflections in the Stone of Tyr. This isn't the Rand that put in new law across so many nations.
Right.
This is the Dragon Reborn. At this point in time, you can make the fair argument that is Rand from the Two Rivers still there? Yes. Is Rand from Demise Wells still there? Yes. But it's all culminated into a point, like we saw in Book 12, where Rand gets to a breaking point, and it's either it's just like stressing tools. They're either going to pass the test or they're going to snap, and the tool is going to be useless. And we get to see Rand pass that test. He passes the stress test and becomes this Rand that we need. But I think we've talked about Rand pretty much enough, because this does happen in the epilogue. This sets the tone, leaving Towers of Midnight going into a Memory of Light. But there's a lot more from this book that we need to talk about.
There really is. There's a lot.
And I kind of want to save... I don't want to say I want to save Perrin for last, but because he has the most...
Yeah.
Well, it's almost impossible to save Perrin for last, because he's so involved with everything else that happened.
I would say that there are two other main plot points in this book. One of them is Perrin and one of them is Matt. If we're going bare bones,
Perrin and one of them is what?
Matt.
Okay.
Because if we're going with, you know, sort of the Cliff Notes version or the book review, I'd be willing to say that Matt would be the next step to take.
All right, well, let's go with Matt. Why don't you talk us through some of what old Matty boy does?
So Matt is, first off, we know he's got the Foxhead Medallion. He's met a golem previously in the story in Crown of Swords. Okay. He, at this point in time, he agrees to turn the ter'angreal over to Elaine, or to borrow it so that she can make copies of this ter'angreal, which is a huge
that's
thing.
part of a deal.
Yeah.
Part of a bigger deal. At this point, we have the dragon.
Yes. And this is a huge story. So we have what was it? We have the battle with the Golem because they have
the one where he and Teslin Baradon fight it off.
Yes,
because he encounters a Golem near Camelin.
Right,
and it's after then that Matt's kind of like, this is going to be an ongoing issue. We've got to kill this thing. We've got to get rid of this thing.
And the only thing that has been proven to injure or damage a Golem is this ter'angreal. Why? I don't think it's ever been confirmed.
Well, I mean, I think it goes along the line. So this ter'angreal, what does it do? In Thanos snaps Weaves of the Power, right?
Right.
And we know that the Golem was created by the Forsaken using the One Power.
Right.
And I think it works, kind of, the same way that most Shadow Spawn cannot go through gateways.
Right.
And going through them, well, I don't think any Shadow Spawn can go through gateways. The Trollocs damn sure for fuck all can't. Right. And we know the same thing happens with constructs. So even the nymph race that the Aes Sedai and the Age of Legends created cannot go through gateways. It instantly starts, and there's something about how that works that just doesn't allow it to happen. And there's given Robert Jordan's background in physics, I'm sure there's an explanation there that we're just not aware of at this exact moment to talk about.
That's probably, I can say we can chop that up to a Mafo. I'd be willing to bet.
To a what?
To a Mafo. Maria.
Okay. I got you.
So I think we can and there's even a point where Rand is able to take a gateway, turn it on its side, and run it across like Trolloc ranks so that Trollocs end up falling through the gateway. Like it's an amazing weapon.
It always opens up to a random location, so the bodies don't pile up anywhere. Which imagine being that farmer that walks outside and there's half a Trolloc screaming and dying in the field.
So
Matt once again is meeting with his absolutely favorite bloody queen, Elaine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your Royal Highness bloody pain in my arse.
Yeah, he spends a lot of time in Camelin. Does he helps set up the defense in Camelin as well, right?
I believe he does, because the main reason he's there is because I think at this point the Illuminator Aludra has kind of mixed with the like technological advancement school that Rand helped establish.
Yes,
and there's also significant bell founders in Camelin. Makers of bells, which we remember from many books ago. Aludra told Matt that she would need the use of the bell founders to make her idea a thing.
Right.
And essentially her idea, and when we say the dragons, not referring, of course, to Rand or the markings on the chiefs of the IL or anything like that.
Right.
Cannons. That's what they are. They're cannons. And this very much reminiscent of the way the Chinese came up with the idea of cannons after the discovery of gunpowder.
And it is super awesome. And while he's in Camelin, I want to say, so he's got and I'm drawing a complete total blank. What is it that originally draws him to the tower?
You mean to the White Tower?
No, to the Tower of Genji.
Oh, it's Moraine's letter.
So yeah, Moraine writes him a letter, and Moraine. Well, no, it was Moraine writes Tom a letter.
Yeah, and Moraine wrote two letters, one to Tom and one to Rand.
And Tom the letter to Tom.
Letter to Tom says that he cannot show it to Matt until Matt asks about it, and he asks about it in the last book, I think.
Yeah, he kind of asks about it in book 6, but he doesn't ask about it specifically. He asks about it kind of in passing.
But I mean, before we even get to the tower, to what you're getting to, there's still some important stuff that Matt does before that.
Oh, hit me. Sorry. Didn't mean to jump.
Oh, no, you're fine. Because basically, we've had a singular golem running around since, what, book 4? 5? Which book did they find the Bowl of the Winds?
7.
Okay, so book 7.
Yeah, so
it's the first true time that we see the golem. It's a male design, or not male design, but they created 3 female, 3 male golem, and it is a male and figure golem.
Right.
And it takes all the way to book 13 for Matt to be like, I'm done with this motherfucker. Let's fucking ice his ass.
Yeah.
And so he's doing all this bargaining and stuff to make things happen. And part of getting the state funding or the government funding to make the dragons, to make the cannons, is his deal to agree to let Elaine borrow that Foxhead medallion so that she can make copies, which she does splendidly. Right. And that's one of her talents, creating Angreal, making copies of Angreal. And Matt's sitting there and he's like, well, we can use these copies to help trick and wound the golem into a point where we can finally get rid of it. And it is ultimately the kinswoman, Sumiko, that opens a skimming gateway, not a full traveling, but a skimming gateway.
Oh, that's right.
For the golem. They push the golem through, and the idea is that he's in a endless free fall.
He's gone.
So essentially gone, yeah.
And they mention numerous times when they talk about skimming that if you were to fall off the barge, you would
fall for all eternity.
You'd fall forever. It's a void. It's a place between spaces.
Yeah, and it's not long after that Perrin and his group arrives with, and we'll get more into this, but more gazes into when she convinces Elaine of a couple things, and we'll get into that when we talk more about Perrin. But ultimately, Matt has used Elaine as a way to get the dragons made, and she has used Matt as a way to arm the armies to some extent with an object that makes them essentially immune or almost immune to attacks that use the one power. Right. And in the end, the dragons wound up being such a formidable force, the cannons wound up being such a technological advancement that she uses those and promises of, hey, I will give you land in Andor. She makes that promise to the Kyrian nobles, and ultimately this seals her claim to the throne in Kyrian, right, making her both queen in Camelin and queen in Kyrian. Yes. So she sits on the lion and the sun throne at the same time.
Right. And she now controls a vast majority of
the free world.
Of the known region. And so and that was really good. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Matt actually maneuvers to get some dragons for his Band of the Red Hand as well.
Oh yeah.
He has ones exclusively for him and his band of Merry.
He does. That is a part of the deal, that some have to be given to the Band of the Red Hand. That's non-negotiable. Right. Which is well within his right.
Yeah. And so they've got this going in Camelin. Matt, has spoken with Tom. Tom has had this letter, and if you want to know what the letter says, I've made reference to this before, and it's actually the Towers of Midnight trailer. If you look on YouTube and go to the Towers of Midnight trailer, you will get a sort of a voiceover of what that letter says to Tom. It's a great video. You should definitely.
You can also just Google the letter. You can Google Moraine's letter to Tom, well. Wheel of Time, and you can read it.
Where basically she says, hey, I'm still alive. You can come get me. However, you can only bring 2 other people, and one of them has to be. If you bring any more or any less, we all die.
100% guarantee we'll all die. And even if you bring just those 2 people, there's still a good chance we all die.
Still a good chance we're all going to die. However, if you so choose, you may attempt to free me. And this is why this is the title. This is why we have the title of the book, because this is the Tower of Genji or Genji. I don't know how to pronounce it. But we find out that
I might be able to counter that statement about the title. Yeah. Because there are 2 other prevailing theories about the significance of the title.
Oh.
One being that there is a fortress complex in Inferel, which is in the Shanchan, that is made up of 13 towers. So that's one reference. There's also the reference to Egwene's experience of what is called a true dream, or something from Teleron Riyadh, where she has a vision where there were 13 black towers where they stood beneath a tar-like sky, which is obviously reminiscent of kind of the Blight and Shao Ghul. Mm-hmm. And as Egwene watched, one tower after another fell as the remaining towers grew. And there's a final tower that shook and cracked, collapsing most of the way to the ground, but then recovered and grew tallest of all, which could be a reference to Ishmael's defeat, death, then his resurrection as Moradin, and then his elevation to Ne Bliss. But as of the beginning of the Towers of Midnight, there are only 6 living Forsaken of the original 13.
All right.
So there's just 2 possible ones. There's also possible reference to the black and white towers, as well as the Tower of Genji, as they are major plot lines, and there's also some kind of argument about the 7 towers of Malkir. So it's kind of like it could mean any of these things. I think most likely it's honestly, I think the title comes from the fact that it could be a reference to any of these things.
Yeah. Well, and
Um,
that's one of the things that makes
but I do
this
think the Tower
series
of Genji
so
is the
amazing.
most important.
Yeah. Well, and that's what makes this series so amazing. Is that, you have such a rich history and mythos that you can, we can postulate and pontificate all day
Oh,
on
big words.
what it
It hurt my
is.
brain.
I know, right? I just pulled out some big words. But in this particular case, I believe they go directly to the Tower of Genji, which is the tower right off of the river of Arenal that we see in book 1 that Bale Doman points out
Yeah.
to
One that they
Matt and Rand and Tom.
is it Matt, Rand, and Tom, or is it Nynaeve and her crew? Because for some reason I think it's the scene where like they're not far from the tower and Nynaeve and them ask about it, and they're told that the rumor is to always stay away from that it's a cursed area.
I remember that,
Could be wrong.
but when I was talking about is in book 1 when they all get separated and Rand and Matt and Tom end up together. They've just escaped from Shadar Logoth. They jump aboard the ship and they're going down the Arenal to Whitebridge. And Bale Doman points out the tower and Matt's like, "Oh, they just changed it." And Bale says, "No, nothing in there, man. I've seen it. I've been up to it. I've touched it. It's just a big old metal tower.
You're right.
No
You're
opening.
right.
There's
You are
nothing."
100% correct.
And so it's interesting that Matt and Tom and their third companion, Noel, who is
Noel Charin, who is also
Jane Farstrider. That's right, The Adventures of Jane Farstrider. Jane Farstrider, the legendary adventurer who wrote this book and who is famous in his day. Who did they confirm he's a hero of the Horn?
I believe so.
He's a hero. He's
There's
one of these
been a
people
slew of people that have gone into this tower.
Yeah.
So Slayer fled into it in Teleron Riad. Moraine obviously is held captive. Lanfear the same way. Tom, Matt, and Noel, or Jane, whichever you want to call. Birgitta, she's been there. She entered as a previous life and died in there as Jathari, along with Gaiden Kane, or Gaedal Kane. And then a unidentified man who could be presumed to be Morden coming for Lanfear.
The popular theory is that the quote unidentified man who entered the Tower of Genji was Moradin coming, which kind of brings you some question as well about, because we already know that the Towers of Genji are sort of because there's the Twisted Door Terangreal, which take you to either the Aelfin or the Eelfin, the snakes or the foxes. And there's the Tower of Genji, which is sort of I don't know, I guess you could call it a portal or a way gate or something. But basically, it's a trans-dimensional door, and they have a connection to the Snakes and the Foxes, which is a popular board game with children because it is widely known that it's impossible to win this board game unless you break the rules. And what I think is most amazing about this scene is you've got Tom, Matt, and Noel, who Tom, it's up for debate whether or not he gets spun into the wheel as a hero of the Horn. I don't know that he does. I don't know that amazing. He's an amazing man, and he's intelligent, and he's brilliant, and he's brave. Matt, I think, definitely has been spun into the wheel and is definitely a hero of the Horn, and the stories will remember him as a gambler. And then you've got Noel, who is confirmed as Jane Farstrider. And I think it's amazing that these three guys go into the tower and they start with, the parallels to the Snakes and the Foxes.
You mentioned Jane Farstrider being a hero attached to the pattern, attached to the wheel. and the winds picked up outside my house. A wind blew
So
across the open suburban area of Columbia, South Carolina.
what I think is cool is when Matt and Tom and Noel go there. I think it's interesting to note that Moraine says that those three must come, and that when they talk about the snakes and the foxes, the game of the snakes and the foxes, it starts with courage to strengthen, fire to blind, music to dazzle, iron to bind. There's three aspects there, and there's three adventurers that go to the tower.
So I don't think her statements on this come from her trip through the Redstone doorway. I think they come through what she sees when she goes to Ruidin. Because we see through Avienda that Ruidion can show a person that is traveling through Ruidion, as the wise ones often do, potential futures. So I would think Moraine has seen the potential future where like maybe only Tom himself comes and they all die. A future where they basically bring an army and they all die, and a potential future, the 14 million some odd things. How many did we win? One. Kind of thing here. Just like with the game of Snakes and Foxes, that is made popular or made known to the reader through Matt and Oliver playing. There comes this thing of, iron to bind, fire to blind, music to enchant or entrance. So when they go into the Tower of Genji, of course they draw the access symbol, which is the same symbol that has to be drawn when starting the game of Snakes and Foxes. They draw that on the outside of the Tower of Genji, and that opens it up for them to enter. Once in, Tom, of course, as the Gleeman, is using music. Noel uses fire, and all three are using iron weapons. Along the way, they encounter many of the fox-faced Eilfin, rather, with an E, that they are able to repel, because the music seems to put them in some sort of trance, for them to either sneak by or to be attacked by one of the three men. They do find Moraine, and once they're there, Matt remembers they always make a bargain. And so Matt does make a bargain. And I believe there's a part of prophecy that talks about, for Matt, we wound up finding out through here that it is in regards to Matt, but that in order to save the world, he must give up half the light of the world. And we see that fulfilled here, because Matt agrees to give up one of his eyes in exchange for safe passage without an attack from the Eilfin. He forgets to mention the snake-like Eilfin, with an A, and it is the Eilfin that chased them during their escape. It is during this time that Noel, who at this time is revealed to be Jane Farstrider, sacrifices himself to give the party extra time to leave. Matt, Tom, and Moraine escape only whenever Matt has realized that the Ashandere he was given is a key that can make an exit portal from the realm of the Fen, and he uses that to get out. And this is when we learn that Moraine has lost a significant portion of her ability to channel, and if she doesn't have the powerful bracelet Angreal, that's made very popular in a lot of the artwork involving Moraine. You see her holding this glowing kind of blue circle. That is the bracelet that she gets from the Fen, as part of her bargain, whatever bargain she makes moving forward. I do find it curious that the wiki says that she needs this bracelet to channel with any kind of strength, where in reality, this is an Angreal that is so powerful it borderlines Saw Angreal, because it makes the weakened Moraine stronger than Lanfear, which is significant. But they do all this and they escape. And for Matt and Moraine and Tom, and of course Noel Charon or Jane Farstrider, that is the end of their story in regards to Towers of Midnight. Which of course brings us all the way to Perrin, the man with the most point of view throughout the series, or not throughout the series, rather throughout this book. We find out that Moradin has given a dream spike to Grendel, which blocks things like traveling. and is giving it to Grendel so that Perrin can be trapped and then killed by an invading Trolloc army. Grendel then in turn orders Slayer to to keep it in Teleron Riad and place it in Teleron Riad so the Ashman with Perrin cannot form gateways. Perrin has been training in Teleron Riad with Hopper. He finds the Dream Spike and starts moving it away, realizing that he can only jump within the radius of the effect of the device. So he's limited to very short hops. And he eventually makes his way to Tar Valon with Slayer chasing him. Then back in the waking world, in the real world, Perrin is moving through Geldon and encounters the Children of the Light, who, of course, after the events of the last book, have recently raised Galen Damodred as their leader after he defeated Eamon Valda for leadership of the Children of the Light. Jarrett Beyer and Dane Borhold accuse Perrin of killing two Children of the Light. We know it's not an accusation. We know this actually did happen. It happens in book 1. And we learned the names of the two children that he killed, being Lothan and Yamwick. They also accuse him of killing Jeffram Bornhold, as well as bringing Trollocs into the Two Rivers. They blame Perrin for Jeffram Bornhold's sacrifice for his death during the battle with the Shan-Chan at Falma. And then, of course, when the Trollocs attack Two Rivers, they basically say Perrin did that to try to add credence to the, he's not a dark friend kind of thing. Perrin admits that he killed Lathan and Yamwick, but denies all the other crimes. Galen and Perrin want to avoid a battle over the whole issue. So whenever Gallet discovers that Queen Morghese is actually alive and among the refugees that are traveling with Perrin, they agree to have a trial with Morghese as the judge and use Andoran law as the location that the offense happened, as well as the nationality allegiance that they both claim would be Andoran. Perrin attempts to use the fact that the two men killed his wolf friends as a legal defense, but Morghese isn't having any of it. Killing wolves in Andor is not a valid legal reason for self-defense. Ultimately, judges Perrin to be guilty of this offense, but then says that Galad is responsible for establishing the sentencing. And Perrin agrees, okay, I'll go by whatever he says after the last battle, after Tarmangadan. Of course, Galad ultimately sentences Perrin to fight his absolute hardest against the forces of Shadow in Tarmangadan, which Perrin, of course, does. In Teleron Riad, Isam, which we know to be the name of Slayer, does kill Hopper in the dream in Teleron Riad, which ends any chance of the dead wolf being reborn. Perrin destroys the dream spike that he had moved earlier by dropping it into lava created by somebody's nightmare, and escapes Isam by returning to the real world and decides to bring his army to bear. Basically to save Galad's Children of the Light from the attacking Trollocs. Although the children are in danger of being wiped out, the Trolloc army does break and flee after Perrin's forces charge down the hill at them. It's after the battle that Jarrett Beyer attempts to kill Perrin, but Beyer is instead killed by Dane Bornhold, who no longer believed that Perrin killed his father, Jeffram Bornhold, because Beyer can never give evidence in favor of that. It can never give evidence to prove that. And it is, of course, sorry for earlier, but it is at this point in the story that Galad sets Perrin's sentence for his crimes, being that they join forces, make their way for Andor, and ultimately fight to the best they can for Tarmangadan. We get a little excerpt from Grendel here where she's blamed by Shadar Haran for Masana's defeat, and Murdral take her away to be punished. And that's the last we see of Grendel for this book. But of course, that does raise a bit of a question about how Masana is captured and defeated and so on. And it kind of culminates with a little bit of everything else that's happened in the book to this point. Of course, the dialogue that Egwene hasn't happened yet. That happens, after the last chapter of the book. So Egwene is aware of Masana's presence and is plotting to find her. Gawain, of course, is around saying, "Let me be your warder. I'm going to be your warder." And she refuses because he's not listening to her and gets in the ways of her plans consistently. There's actually a moment where a blood knife, a Shan-Chan assassin, that was left behind after the attack on the White Tower does try to kill Egwene, and Gawain sets off all of her alarms that were intended to trap Masana, but he sets them off while fighting a blood knife trying to save her life. Egwene keeps insisting that Masana is behind everything, that she's trying to do it, and Gawain basically nopes out of the situation, says he can't deal with it, and he leaves to visit his sister because he feels like just him being there, even after saving Egwene's life, isn't appreciated. Egwene sets up and has a meeting with Aes Sedai, the Aiel Wise Ones, and Seafolk Wind Fighters in dreams, with the intent of developing a plan to draw Masana into a trap. Eventually, Masana and the Black Aja attack. By this point, Perrin has moved that dream spike to Tar Valon, so this keeps Masana from escaping. Masana attempts to hold Egwene in Teleron Riyadh within a dam, but Egwene, being so good as she is with Teleron Riyadh, wills it unlocked and then breaks Masana's mind. Gawain, at this point, has discovered the true nature of the blood knives from a captured Soldam, and that Elaine is dreamwalking, and he returns by traveling just in time to stop 3 blood knives from killing Egwene in her sleep. But by the time she wakes up, she finds that Gawain is hurt so badly that the only way to save his life is to bond him. Gawain gets his way. Egwene's like, fine, fuck it, I'll bond you and save your life. So there's really one more big part of the book that surprisingly is not really included in the overview of what happens in the book. But in terms of the series, it's a significant historical event. If you look at the book covers, if you have the printed book cover, the original printed book cover, that's where you will see Tom and Matt and Noel gaining entry into the Tower of Genji. But if you look at the ebook cover, you see this burly man with a smithing hammer. There's a wolf head banner in the background, and he's holding this red hot hammer, war hammer, that is giving off steam and smoke that looks like a wolf as well. And of course, that is in reference to Perrin's forging of Ma Alanir. Of course, there's obvious parallels to Mjolnir. The hammer used by Thor.
The mighty hammer of Thor.
Yeah. So, a lot of summaries, or I say a lot of summaries, I haven't really read a lot, but summaries seem to leave this part out. This does take place in Towers of Midnight in chapter 40, entitled A Making. And we get to see the first ever. So, of course, Aes Sedai, as part of the Three Oaths, have taken an oath to make no weapon of war. But the Asha'man are not bound by the same restrictions.
Right.
So, at this point, Perrin, he has decided he needs to be rid of the Half Moon Axe. He's tired of it. He's basically hit the point where Elias cautioned him, where he's no longer scared of using it. He's no longer worried about using it. He actually finds himself from occasion to occasion enjoying using it.
Yeah, he threw it after they rescued, or during the rescue effort for Fail. And it, chunked into a tree, and someone said, "Hey, don't you want to get your axe?" And he said, "Leave it. Maybe a Gleeman will write a story about it." And since then, he's going through this sort of almost an existential sort of scenario in his head, where he's going back to his roots, right? He's going back to what he understands.
He's had a blacksmith hammer that he carries with him as well.
Yeah, since
that's what he's been using since throwing that away. Yeah. So that's what he's been using recently, since he threw away the Half Moon Axe.
Right. And his whole sort of existential crisis involves him going back to his roots as a blacksmith and saying, this is what I know. This is what I want. I just want to be a blacksmith. I want people to let me alone. But the problem he keeps running into is that no matter what he starts working on, he ruins it. He ruins the steel. He ruins the metal. And he's almost got this like mantra of, if you don't know what you're building, you can't build it. And I think Robert Jordan or Brandon Sanderson, in this case, both of them together, did an absolutely stellar job of writing his sort of mental journey in accepting the fact that I have to accept who and what I am and what I do and what I have to do. And
Perrin talks about one of his main issues whenever he tries to make things now is that he's so far out of practice that he can't seem to keep the metal at the appropriate temperature for working.
Right.
And that's what opens the gateway for Niald to come in and help Perrin.
Yes.
So for Niald, it's more practice, more training with the power. For Perrin, it's a higher guarantee of success by him practicing his old trade. For the longest time, what made Perrin. And we get this beautiful scene where, just like you said, if you don't know what you're making, you can't make it. And Perrin kind of breaks from that, but at the same time embraces it. And he lets his kind of creative muse, what's important to him, take shape in the form of what he makes.
Right.
And, he's got all these things. He's just recently seen Hopper killed in Teleron Riyadh.
In the dream. Yeah, that's a big deal.
And it's weighing heavily on his mind. And he remembers, he's like, whenever I was troubled, I would go into the forge and I would make things and it would take my mind off of it and it would make me feel better. And I would just come out so focused. And that's what he does. He just starts forging. He grabs this massive hunk of steel.
He doesn't even know what he's doing. He's just like, it's a big chunk of steel. I don't even know what I'm going to do with it. I don't even care what I'm going to do with it right now. I just need
iron, whatever it was. Massive chunk
whatever it was. I just need to hit this chunk of metal with a hammer. That's what I need to do right now.
Yeah. So that's what he's doing. And he's imbuing his feelings about Hopper along with his acceptance of being a Wolf brother, along with his history of being a blacksmith. And he's basically making this very large, oversized blacksmith hammer.
Yes.
And Nadal is there, or Niald rather, is there trying to help keep the metal the right temperature. And then,
well, if I remember correctly, it's Perrin he's bang, 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 bang. And Niald is watching him saying, he looks happier when he's actually hitting the hammer, when he's actually hitting the metal. And he says, Lord Perrin, I can keep this metal at the right temperature for you, if you'd like me to. And Perrin says, "Hey, that'd be convenient. Thanks." And tells him, I need it just at a dull orange or a bright yellow. I need it at that temperature. And so Niald channels Saidar into the hammerhead, or into the chunk of metal, to get it to the right temperature. And Perrin goes, yeah, that's it right there. That's good. And then Perrin starts, boom. He starts going at it, and he gets into this moment of pure zen, where it's just like what you were saying. He's sending those feelings, that spirit, that soul, those emotions. He's sending that into it, and he says he can actually feel that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this happens at one time because Niall starts doing something, and he doesn't know why he's doing it. All he can say is it feels right. It feels like the thing to do. I saw how to do it, and I just started doing it. And at some point, Niald asks the wise ones that are there to link with him, to form a circle with him.
The wise ones. Keep in mind, the wise ones. Not Aes Sedai.
Not Aes Sedai. Wise ones. And so using Saidin and Saidar, Niald is just doing something that feels right. Does this sound familiar? Does this sound reminiscent of how, I don't know, one Nynaeve discovered how to heal being stilled or gentled?
Exactly.
He's just doing what feels right. And Perrin is doing this, and he feels something, he describes it as leaking from him, as if each blow infused the metal with his own strength and also his own feelings, both worries and hopes. These flowed from him into the three unwrought pieces. By the end of this, the Ashaman Grady has joined in, and all six of the wise ones And Perrin asks Niall, what did you do? And Niall says, it felt right. I saw what to do, how to put the weaves into the metal itself. It seemed to draw them in like an ocean drinking in the water of a stream. And so, at the conclusion of the scene, we have the very first ever power wrought weapon to be made since the Trolloc Wars. Something that was thought to have been lost in the Age of Legend.
And not only that, but the whole circle of channelers are exhausted. And the plant life around this smithy or this forge that Perrin is working in, all the sparks have like blown it away. Like it talks about the whole area being charred as if it's one big spark had gone off around it. There was so much power in this forging session that just people were just blown away by it.
Oh yeah. I mean, so he winds up taking this hammer. Sorry, I think I interrupted your thought.
No, you're good.
So when Perrin is done, it has the imprint of a leaping wolf on the side of its head, and is described as resembling an oversized blacksmith's hammer more than it does a traditional war hammer, with the fact that what you refer to as the back of the hammer, where a war hammer would have an armor-piercing spike, this has a wedge-shaped piece in the back. It is a blacksmith's hammer upscaled. Very, very much upscaled. It winds up being the handle winds up being about 4 feet long, and the head of it is described to be brick shaped. Ultimately, after Niald and Perrin and the Wise Ones and Grady figure out what they've done, they're like, well, every power wrought weapon has to have a name. A weapon has to have a name, and until you give it a name, it's not complete. So Perrin, using the collective intellect around him, calls it Ma Alanir, which is Old Tongue for he who soars. And it is named after Hopper, which makes it's an incredibly empowering scene because we get to see something made that hasn't been made since the Trolloc Wars, but it's also an incredibly emotional scene because we get to see Perrin pour all of his burning emotions and feelings and worries that he's accumulated over the last several books into what made Perrin at the beginning. So he's paying homage to that blacksmith, that kind of blacksmith foundation that he has by making essentially a giant forging hammer. He's paying homage to being a wolf brother and to the wolf that was teaching him all this time. The wolf that incited Perrin with so much emotion, with so much ferocity to take the first lives he ever did. We basically get to see Perrin come to terms with who and what he is and what he has to be in this scene, through doing something that has been a part of Perrin since as far as he can remember. It's not just his worry and concern over Hopper that gets forged into this hammer. It's all the anxiety that he had, all the worry and concern he had whenever Fael was a captive of the Shido. It's the anguish that he feels at the loss of his entire family during the events of Winter Night, or not the events of Winter Night. Sorry. I believe it was actually the Children of the Light that burned down his house and killed his family, or was it the Trolloc?
Right. No, it was
Padan Fane's White Cloaks. Yeah,
White Cloaks.
He's poured.
Yeah, it was they had.
Yeah, so he's poured all of that emotion into it, all of his concern over what's going on with Rand and what's going on with Matt. Will I ever get to go back to the Two Rivers? Will I ever be able to just be a normal person again? That gets poured into this, and it winds up having an incredible effect on what makes the power wrought weapon, and it gives us an incredible insight into what makes power wrought weapons what they are. That it can't be, that Aes Sedai or channelers can probably make these things of their own, but they're so far more incredible whenever the person that's going to wield it is a part of the process.
Mahalanir is truly a unique, one of a kind.
I mean, because it winds up having these
treasure
attributes
in
of
this world.
it's well, I don't remember that happens in this book, so I can't say it yet. So I'll have to save it for our next book review. But there is the idea that, you know, obviously Ma Alanir has a parallel both in name and description to Mjolnir. And there is the thought that because time was secular, that over the course of several thousand years, Ma Alanir does become Mjolnir. I like the idea. I like the idea that
Which
it does.
I love.
I don't agree. I don't agree that it does.
Right.
Because I don't see it changing attributes. Is the only way I can put it right now. In the way that would be needed for Ma Alanir to become Mjolnir. I think it's an interesting thought. I think it's a fantastic thought.
Well, but remember too, ages come and go.
They sure do.
You never know.
But Mjolnir never changes.
What is interpreted in this age according to the legends that we understand.
Okay, fair point.
But that's what's beautiful about this, right? That's what's beautiful about this whole thing is that Robert Jordan has, in the most amazing way, just basically taken the rules and thrown them out and said, yeah, we don't care. 3,000 years passes, and guess what? Anybody can be a hero or a villain or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's one of those things that, you know, is it Mjolnir? Nah, I don't know. Mjolnir is sort of it's a fire rock weapon, right? More of a fire element. And it has, you know, of course, when it's used to attack Shadow Spawn, it actually attacks the physical form of the Shadow Spawn. So maybe that's what they're saying is it calls down lightning. I don't know. But the thing with Mjolnir, the big thing with Mjolnir is that Mjolnir would always come back to its wielder's hand. And that's the big attribute that I think is not interpretable that Mjolnir doesn't seem to have. Unless there's a part that I'm missing. I don't know. I can't recall specifically any part of the story in which Mjolnir returns to Perrin's hand. Maybe one of our listeners could tell us if that's the case. That would be great. But no, this is one of my favorite scenes in the series. Not only is it a rediscovery of an old talent, which is always exciting, but it's also a very emotionally intense, emotionally invested scene where not only do you have this rediscovery of an old talent, and you have a full circle of wise ones and Ashaman who are sitting there, you know, just panting, just completely spent at the end of it. Not only do you have that, but you also have Perrin, who is probably one of the ones that I would say has the most sense. We get a lot of depth from him emotionally. And so this scene is really beautiful in that it's woven particularly from his point of view, which, you know, we all know right now that Robert Jordan was a master at weaving a story from a particular point of view, which is one of the reasons why, you know, we love this series. But in this particular case, he shows you exactly what Perrin is going through, what Perrin is working through emotionally in order to, you know, come to a conclusion. And the conclusion he comes to is this hammer, but this hammer carries with him a piece of, you know, his soul emotionally, who he is and what he wants to accomplish at the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like
conflict. He knows where he wants to
go. It's Ebenezer Scrooge's Ebenezer Scrooge's ghost of Christmas, past, present, and future. It's who he was, who he is,
and who all in one setting,
in one instrument.
It is. It's a great. It's an. I also love when it talks about the blacksmith hammer he's been carrying with him at this time is worn to the nub.
That's many a scold.
It's worthless at this point.
I think that might be part of. I think that might be part.
I don't know. I think those
to do this.
I think you're right. Well, I thought it was worn to the nub from forging Mjolnir.
You might be right. I can neither confirm nor deny.
I don't know. You know what? I'm gonna find out when I read it again, and it's gonna be awesome. No, I feel like so. I even know that Brandon Sanderson has even acknowledged that Towers of Midnight felt rushed. While I see people's point, I would disagree. I don't think it feels rushed. I think it's potent. I think there is a lot of exposition going on. And I think there is a lot of story that they try to cover, that they have to cover. Because when you start talking about the epilogue, which we discussed earlier with Rand, guys, this is the beginning of Tarmangaida. This is it. This is the end. This is the final confrontation. This is it. The ultimate battle between good and evil. And this is it. I mean,
you're coming.
There's no more
coming out of the Gathering Storm.
Yeah.
Into okay, we have to get ready for the last battle. For the Gathering Storm, like yeah, obviously there's a lot of stuff that happens, but there's not a lot of it. I think it's done intentionally because you have so much. So we've talked before that originally this was meant to be a 12-book series, and so you have books.
The last 3 that Brandon Sanderson wrote was supposed to be one book.
So you have books 1 through 6 being the first part that have this steady build up to this culmination event of Demise Wells. And then after that, you have the second half of the series. And it's kind of I don't want to say it's a trope of fantasy, but it's a standard of many storytellings that if you have a period, if you have an overall longer story, and within that story, there are smaller sections of climaxing action, but not the climax of the series.
Right.
That they're followed by more exposition. I mean, the Harry Potter series does it. Lord of the Rings does it. Every series does it. Harry Potter, you have the Sorcerer's Stone that all in that book climaxes to, Harry's first confrontation with the parasite that is Voldemort. And it continues like that. And for me, The Wheel of Time has done the same thing. And even since book 1, you get all these hints that the last battle is closer than you think. It's closer than you think. It's coming. We need to be ready. Rand, you need to focus on this. Rand, you're the Dragon Reborn. Listen to me. I'm Moraine. All this stuff. And even when you go through the Gathering Storm, you're just now getting Egwene taking over the White Tower, reunifying the White Tower, starting to purge the Black Aja from the tower, and getting everything somewhat set. Like it's right. Like this is where, if you look at it in a timeline, an ideal timeline, where Egwene brings the White Tower is where the White Tower needed to be during book 1 to be truly, truly ready.
Yes. Oh my God, yes.
When you go from the Gathering Storm and you're here in Towers of Midnight, I think that if there is a sense of things being rushed, it's intentional with the knowledge that the last battle is here. It's happening. And I'm not talking about several months down the line. I'm not talking about a couple years down the line. I'm talking like a couple weeks down the line. Like within this month.
It's
within the
here,
month
guys.
Of the end of Towers of Midnight. At least feeling wise. The last battle is here. The battle to decide the fate of not just mankind, not just any culture, but of the collective fabric of time is here.
Existence.
Yeah. So you almost need that rushed feel because you need the reader to feel that sense of there's a lot of shit we need to do, and it needs to have been done.
We're not ready. We're not ready. We're not ready. It's panic, panic, panic. Like, come on, guys. This is it. The Dark One's about to break free.
It's such a life lesson. There's so many times that things need to be done, and you're not ready. You don't have everything together. There's never been a single parent in the history of parenthood that was ever ready for their first child. I might say they're ready.
They also kind of...
And there's things you can do, but, it's kind of one of the... that's the way I kind of think about it, is in Towers of Midnight, you get to see a lot of things getting fully tied up. More the letters with Tom, or Tom's letter is resolved. We've got Moraine back. Matt's finally got his dragons. They're being built. They're being readied. Everything's happening for their... Perrin is now fully accepted of the Wolf Dream, and he's got this true fire lit behind him, and we no longer have the slog of Fael being a captive for 2 entire fucking books. And we got all that going on, and it all culminates in Rand being like, and to me, the epilogue is what really sets it and really lays the foundation for why the book, if it does feel rushed, should feel rushed. Because Rand's like,
yeah,
we need to break the seal. Because this entire book, we haven't heard from Rand until we get to the end. So all we can assume is that Rand has been doing things to get ready. It's more than making some of his last-ditch efforts to ensure the salvation or the success of the Shadow.
Yeah.
Though we know he's focused on his own stuff, but also trying to get that done. But we got Matt getting everything in place and finally working with Elaine on the ter'angreal, the Foxhead Medallion ter'angreal. We finally got Moraine back, so Tom's kind of arc is for the most part being tied up and finished and fleshed out. While Charon comes in and goes out, Perrin is finally dealing. We get to see the central characters dealing with all of these emotions, right? We get to see Rand, having in the last book come to terms with who he is and what he is. You get to see Perrin. This is Perrin's, called to church on the slopes of Dragonmount book. Right. This is where Perrin's like, I mean, if you want to look at it from an aspect of male mental wellness, this is an incredible book for Perrin.
Right.
Because you can't hold all this in. You've got to let it out. You've got to find an outlet for it, and you've got to make it work. And if you don't, it's going to ruin you. And we see that. Perrin hasn't been able to forge anything outside of this. And it also suggests the whole, you can't do it alone. Don't be afraid to rely on people. Don't be afraid to go to people and say, either I need help, or when they offer help, accept their help. And that's what Perrin does in this book. And he comes out of it with, potentially what lays the foundations for part of the greatest Norse mythology. If you want to follow the timeline theory. You got Matt here, who is frequently, and as far as I'm concerned, erroneously described as very self-absorbed, very selfish, very all in it for himself, doing even more to show that he doesn't really care who gets what, as long as he's good and can live the life he wants to live. Oh, and now he has Tuon to worry about and make sure that she's safe and can be taken care of as well. It's a hasty wrap-up of a lot of things that need to be wrapped up, that need to happen before we get to the ultimate crescendo of the series.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's frantic. It's chaotic. It's not what you would expect it to be. It's emotional. It's deep. It's everything you would hope to find in a superior high fantasy series.
But you got to do more than just read the words on the page.
That's true.
If you just read the words on the page, it's a hasty wrap up. You're going to think it's sloppy writing. There's
and you'd be wrong.
That's one of the things. Brandon Sanderson does such a good job of carrying on the writing style of Robert Jordan, and the fact that there's so much more behind what you're seeing. And
I would even say that Brandon Sanderson is such a class act for trying to, appeal to the readers and trying to sort of acknowledge the readers by saying that it feels a little bit rushed. Maybe it does feel rushed, but guys, the last battle doesn't wait for you. This is what you got to understand. The Dark One's breaking free, and he's not going to go, oh, wait, are you guys ready for me? Do you I can just wait. Can we do this next week? I can just do this next week if you guys aren't ready.
You can't just press start on the controller and access your inventory and just everything be paused until you're ready.
You guys, that's what I'm saying. That's what I mean when I say this book is frantic. It's not rushed. The writing is not poor. The writing is amazing. The forging of Mahalanir is one of my favorite scenes in this book.
Oh, yeah.
It's
such a powerful
If you
scene.
think it's... Yeah. If you feel like it's rushed, if you feel like it's sloppy writing, I really would challenge you. I would defy you to go back through that book and find passages that are sloppily written. And I would say to you, there's nothing sloppy, half-hearted or half-assed about this book. Go and read it. It's an amazing.
Here's one of the things I do, or at least try to do. I pick a character, and it doesn't have to be like when you start reading the series. And if you're listening right now, it damn sure shouldn't be when you just started reading the series. Mm-hmm. But if it is, hey, you do you, boo boo. It's your life. When you start looking at books like this, and so much is happening in this book, and so much has happened in the 12 books that precede it, and you feel like it's rushed. Pick a character and look back on everything that character has gone through that they would have been aware of, that kind of stuff since the beginning of the series. It doesn't matter if you pick Gawain, Galad, Moraine, Egwene, Elaine, Nynaeve, Bran, Matt, Perrin, Rodell Iturrade, Grady. Pick whoever you want. And go back as far as you can feasibly conceive of what that character's life has been like, what it would have looked like. And when you think of a video game, a book series, anything spinning up to a culmination, that's when you can start picking out these things. Hey, this thing here, Galad, as the leader of the Children of the Light, dealing with Perrin like he does, could not have happened if he didn't believe Morghese was actually dead. That couldn't have happened. Exactly. He wouldn't have actually believed that she was dead if the Children of the Light hadn't actually believed. He would have never been exposed to that had he not joined the Children of the Light. When you start drawing those parallels, and if you're going to draw parallels back and timelines back in this series, this is the book to do it. Yes. Take Towers of Midnight.
100% agree.
Grab every character you can and follow them back all the way to book one. It doesn't matter if you pick Elaine, and in the first half of book one, all you say is, well, she was just some bratty kid running around, Camelin as the daughter heir with her, brother Gawain being like, oh, I'm the first prince of the sword. I'll protect you. That's my job. But I'm going to forsake you for the rest of the series. It doesn't matter who you pick. Even Gawain. As much as I will hate on Gawain, as much as I don't like Gawain as a character, in this book, just like the Children of the Light do, Gawain really, he comes into his own for this book and the last book.
He does. He really does.
Because he does get into that selfless sacrifice. He do what he does? Do what he does? Jesus Christ. I've drank more madness than I thought.
Did he do what he do? Did he do what he do?
Abba die. I'm going, I believe I would die. So that's like something like we get to see it with Galad. He's always been willing to stand up and accept whatever repercussions for doing the right thing happen. When he fights Eamon Valda, Galad Damodred is perfectly prepared to die when he fights Eamon Valda. He's like, I believe what I'm doing is right, and I don't care. I'm going to do what I think is right, and if it costs my life to do what I think is right, then it's well worth the sacrifice. And we see Gawain come into that exact same train of thought for different reasons. Gawain is all about, and we even get to see him. Here's how annoying Egwene can be. Gawain got so annoyed that he said, fuck this, I'm going somewhere else. Bruh. You got so annoying that Loverboy said, you know what? Fuck this shit. I'm going down to my friend's house to play Xbox.
That's right.
So, but he comes into his own, and it's for me, it's a refreshing scene for Gawain. And we said this many book reviews ago that as we got to the end of the series, these book reviews were going to probably get longer and longer because there's so much to unpack. So part of me says, sorry that this is so long, but another part of me is like, also not sorry.
Oh, this is not sorry because this is actually
because it's the right thing to do.
Oh shit!
I'm channeling my inner Galad, though I can't find any better with a sword.
The duel between Galad and
but I mean,
amazing, absolutely.
We finally get to see Gawain where he does so much in just this book. He wants to be Egwene's warder. He's begging to be her warder. And she's saying no. And he still is doing everything he can, putting his life on the line to keep her safe. And but he also goes into finally Gawain looking out for Gawain. And when he feels that he's not appreciated, he's like, fuck this shit. I'm gone. I'm going to go talk to my sister because maybe she can help me understand.
I'm going to do me.
And then whenever he sees that, like, oh shit, the woman I love is in danger, he has that running through the airport, gotta catch her before she gets on the plane and the plane leaves moment. And he does.
He still does a dumb thing by using the blood rings.
I mean,
but
dumb thing to fight the people that are trying to kill the woman that you love more than life itself. I'll give him that one. No, I'll give him that one.
Yeah. I'm willing to excuse his stupidity in this particular instance, but no, I will say, in final thoughts, wrapping this whole big ball of wax up, God, I just love this book series. And the Towers of Midnight, Matt taking on these otherworldly Ilfin and Aelfin to go rescue Moraine. Someone he hated when she was taken, by the way. Let's think about when she was taken. That's back in book 4, book 5. He still absolutely hated Aes Sedai. He hated him even more since he had to go through that ter'angreal and he kind of blamed Aes Sedai. And so all of a sudden we show up, and it kind of goes along with our whole Tom and Moraine love story episode, where it was so subtle. We didn't even see it happening. But Matt, in all this, he recognizes that, hey, she isn't all that bad as far as bad people go. I've met some bad people. Moraine is not.
Well, I mean, he's like, I like Tom. So he goes through all this. Like, Matt first hates Moraine because she's telling them all they've got to go somewhere. Matt hates authority.
Yeah.
Which makes it even more ironic that he winds up being in a position of authority. And he hates Moraine because even whenever he's trying to leave the Stone of Tyr, and every time he tries to leave the Stone of Tyr in book 2.
Yeah.
No, not book 2, book 3.
3.
In the beginning, whenever he's trying to leave, and she's either always there or something happens that keeps him from leaving, he doesn't sit there and look at it as like, oh, there's some overarching power that wants me to stay. It's Aes Sedai tricks. Gotta be Aes Sedai tricks. Because he's trying to keep, without talking to us, just keeping eyes on us. She took us out of here. She's the whole reason we're here. It's her fault. And then even whenever she goes through the Redstone doorway, tackles, fucking Edge spears her, Edge spears Lanfear through the Redstone doorway.
Yeah.
Pulls a whole WWE move and everybody goes, oh shit.
John Cena!
Do you support the military? Here's a local Marine who's in need of your support this Sunday.
Right. It's so true. But
he hates her for it because she's like, well, we still have to deal with this shit, but she just fucked off and left us. And he doesn't. He's like, why? Why the fuck? Why? And he finally, it takes him until like book 12, book 13 to ask the right question where Tom's like, I'm glad you asked, whippersnapper. Let's go get her.
Now it's time to go. Yeah.
But at this point, he's been through the crucible of war so hard.
Yeah.
That he's able to look past things he does and doesn't like. Not to mention the fact that he's got to come to terms with how much assistance Aes Sedai and Ashaman have given to him and his military force. And the fact that one of his best friends, I mean, when you think about it, Matt is what, the 4th, 5th at most character that you meet in the series? Because you meet Tam and Rand, and then you meet Amansfield's mayor. So he's like the 4th character you meet.
Yeah, he's right there in the beginning.
And he's like, so you've known Matt forever as a reader, and when you look at his relationship with Rand, he's known Rand far longer than that. At least a good 10 years longer than that. At a minimum.
Yeah.
And
so that's...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's just one of the things that we get to see with these kids is, Matt has this whole journey that he goes on. Perrin has a whole journey, and Rand has a whole journey. Like, none of them are the same kids that they were when they left Emmons Field.
We're not in Kansas anymore.
They're not, dude. They're in Wonderland, like, for sure.
Jesus Christ. They went so far through the tornado, they wound up in Wonderland.
Yeah. That was it, man.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
And I think the Two Towers is that last deep breath
Towers of
before
Midnight.
you jump into the water. Towers of Midnight.
Two Towers is Lord of the Rings, brother.
Lord of the Rings. I'm jumping all over the place tonight.
I can't say shit. I'm not going to lie, man. I've had so much madness. I feel pretty giddy at the moment. All right. Listeners, I'm a little bit on the tipsier side.
In Towers of Midnight, that is the breath, the deep breath before diving into.
Oh,
it is.
Oh, here's a good link for
epilogue.
You. I'm sorry. I just had this thought, and I feel compelled. Grendel, get out of my head, but I feel compelled to share the thought.
Shit.
What does your normal analog clock look like whenever it's midnight?
Little hand and big hand both pointing straight up.
Exactly. That's like two towers pointing straight at midnight.
Oh,
that's your last. That's your last chance before the next day. Bam! Mind blown. Brandon Sanderson was staring at an analog clock when he's like, "No, we should call it Towers of Midnight because the hands on that clock look like towers."
You got me. That's it. I'm done. There's no more to say on this. You fucking wrapped it up. Nice, pretty bow. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Andrew, you want to throw any final thoughts in there, or are you good?
I mean, can you have a final thought about Towers of Midnight?
You can't. That's the point. We could go on forever.
I mean, kind of been trying to.
But if you want to try and wrap something,
for those of you that
want to try and just,
I was about to say, for those of you that can't see, like there's other people that can't see. Only you and I can see how long this recording session has actively been going on for. We're at 3 hours and 24 minutes. I mean, give it about 30 seconds, but. And that's including like an hour of just bullshitting pre-recording. So we're at 2.5 hours. I don't know how long this is going to trim down to. Probably like 2 hours and 15 minutes. As much as people that feel that Towers of Midnight was rushed, I can sympathize with the thought. I can almost agree with the thought, but there comes that idea that it's necessary, that the reader should feel rushed. The reader should feel like, well, holy shit, this just got finished up. Holy shit, this just got finished up. What's going on here? What the fuck you mean, Rand? You want to break the seals and then scene? Like,
shit is real, folks.
It should feel that way. There should be so much that comes out of this. Instead of spending your time saying that the book ended too fast, the book went through too much, the book should have been longer, the book should have done this, should have done that. One, the book's already written, so it is what it is.
Right.
But appreciate this for what it is. Because most readers of the Wheel of Time series, they read things in a chronological order of release. So yes, of course, our last book review is going to be on New Spring. But for most readers, New Spring has been well written by now. Written?
Right.
Well read by now.
Redden.
Yeah. You've read New Spring and understand it by now. So it's going to be like a kind of climatic, I don't know, sadness, I guess, when we finally review it.
Right.
So this is your last book before the story ends. Before the story goes poof. Before everything is as much as it can be resolved. So the plot may feel rushed, but there's no reason to rush through the reading.
Right.
Read through. If you finish the book already and you're like, I'm about to start, Memory of Light. I'm about to start it. There's no rush. The text isn't going anywhere. It's not disappearing. Take your time. Yep. Read back through Towers of Midnight. Pick a single character. If you only do a single character, and draw them back through the series. Give yourself more of a stake in what happens at the end of the series than just simply knowing what happens overall at the end of the series. Yeah. Enjoy it. And
I think that's where rereads come in.
But yeah, you're gonna need to reread. I mean, say that about every book. You know, there's Harry Potter. You miss so much if you don't read it multiple times.
True.
Lord of the Rings.
True.
You miss so much if you don't read it multiple times. And that's a staple of a at least decent author. And when you start getting into high fantasy, a great author. There's stuff in this book that has its roots all the way back in the first book. And then you can even draw roots to the prequel. The thing is, you know, it's kind of like life. Don't take any part of the book for granted. And fully absorb the book for what it is, and the chapters for what it is, and the POVs for what they are. There's a reason Rand only gets 0.28% of the book. There's a reason that Perrin has so much of the book from his point of view. There's a reason behind all of it. There's a reason that if you do ascribe to the feeling that the book is rushed, there's a reason for it.
Right.
You know, and if you don't think there is, just look at how The Gathering Storm went.
Yep.
You know, Brandon Sanderson proved that he can write a slow-paced book off of somebody else's notes, off of somebody else's series entirely. And he did it fantastically. So there's a reason why this book feels so rushed. You know, savor it, because in the next book, man,
it's true.
It's that's it.
Yeah.
After Towers of Midnight,
it's true.
That's it. And once you finish Towers of Midnight, you can reread any book you want, and it's never going to be the same as rereading any of these books before you finish the series.
And it's I agree so hard with that. That's such a good point.
That's my final thought. It's like weirdly, oddly emotional.
So, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Black Tower Podcast, your weekly dose of prescription strength madness. Today we have covered
like at least 40 proof.
We have discussed one of the finest pieces of literature ever to grace the green earth of the creator. We are grateful to Mr. Brandon Sanderson. Thank you so much, who's a longtime fan and longtime listener. I know he is. I know I wasn't supposed to tell you. Also, Mr. Robert Jordan. These two men worked together in tandem to create one of the greatest books of all time, and I'm grateful for it. And I'm grateful to be here with you, good sir Andrew. I am grateful for our good friend Daniel as well, and I hope that he had a kick-ass job interview tonight. And so on behalf of myself, I would like to say goodnight and thank you, and I have been Josh.
And I have been Andrew. Don't forget, you can reach out to us on Twitter at Tower Podcast. You can email us at blacktowerpod@gmail.com. In the episode description on our hosting site, which is blacktowerpod.podbean.com, you can find links to, of course, that Twitter, the YouTube, where Zencastr Podbean will automatically upload our episode if you prefer to listen on YouTube, the merch store, the Patreon, everything like that. There are new and exciting things that are actively in the works and coming as soon as we can get them to you on the Patreon. So why not get in on the ground floor and start now, if you are so incredibly kind. We're in no way, shape, or form begging for funds. But if you are so inclined, we are eternally grateful, in the words of the little green men from Toy Story. We will actually be recording the next episode this coming Saturday, which will... what is Saturday, the 29th? Last day of February for this year, because it's a leap year.
That's it. That's true. Yes.
That episode will air on the 6th of March, so anything will of time that happens between the late hours of the 29th of February and the early or publishing hours on the 6th of March. Try not to hold us too accountable, because, of course, we're recording that episode almost a full week early. But it's a fantastic episode. You're going to love it. I want to leave at least some of it to be a surprise. I can promise you, you will not be disappointed. But yeah, reach out to us. Tell us what you think. What did you think of Towers of Midnight? What did you think of the book review? I know we're behind, but we're getting caught up, which is almost hilarious to say, considering there's only 2 more after this. Hilarious, but also sad. And nothing says we won't revisit some of the books in the future.
Indeed.
But
Indeed.
to make this as short as I possibly can, as we're looking at 3 3/4 hours of recording, thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for your support. We love you all, and we look forward to seeing you next week with an episode that you will love, and I will not spoil, but you're going to love it. What's that thing I'm supposed to say at the end? Oh, yeah. Jesus Christ. As Josh has said that he is Josh, I have been Andrew, and we will see you all in the next episode next week, because I think I can count days still.
Good night, everybody.